The online dialogue series of Refugee Poets was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.
Hello. I would like to read you a poem by Pure. The title of this poem is Not a Rebel. I am a refugee, not a rebel. I choose not to pick arms in my home country. Why would I be a security threat to your country? All I need is shelter and food, not your political positions. I am an ambassador of peace. I choose to walk away instead of fighting. Why build a 500-man wall to block my passage? You say we are encroaching on your land, but we do not intend to own it. Keep us in the forest, but please give us food. Deny us access to the boreholes, but do not deny us nature's water in the rivers and swamps. I am a refugee, not a rebel. Today's conversation on Try My Shoe is about myths and misconceptions that have been held between the refugee communities and the host communities. We are having this conversation because it is important to remember to put a face to numbers, to put a face to a tag, to remember that someone whose current status is refugee will not stay as a refugee forever. And when I was thinking about this conversation, I remembered that a lie repeated over and over and over becomes a truth. Sounds like a truth, but it still is a lie. So I would like us to debunk the myths and misconception. And we are having this conversation again because of GIZ's CPS initiative on Special Initiative on Displacement and the Anika initiative. So these two have powered these conversations, and this is a part of the Refugee Poet 2021 edition. And again, Try My Shoe. So my name is Drayton Nyuzi, and I would like to welcome my guests for the day. So they are amazing people, and I cannot wait for you to meet them. So welcome to my guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to start with you. Please tell us your name and about your amazing initiative.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Hussein Hulufe. I came from Ethiopia. I'm a refugee registered under the Kenyan government and UNHCR. I'm staying in Nairobi.
Thank you, Hussein.
I came in 2005 when I was young. I used to stay at the place called Jamhuri State. I started my journey from there. Then I decided to move to Isili. Then I worked Isili for a few months, few years. Then I started to make my daily life, everything from there. Then I formed a group called OCA. OCA in full Oromo Cultural Association. We started on date 9/09/2019. We started with a few people. We decided to do some kind of activities all over in Kenya. So we started helping among ourselves. The name OCA decided to change to One Refugee Welfare. The reason why I decided to change the name, because OCA is just including Oromo. So I decided to make everyone, people from Ethiopia, to join on refugee welfare. Here am I. This is Hussein. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you for that amazing introduction.
Welcome.
My lady.
Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Foni Vuni. I'm a South Sudanese refugee. I've lived in Kenya for quite a long time. Kenya is practically home. Professionally, I'm what people would call a communication officer. I've lived in Kenya, and for me, Kenya is kind of like home because I've lived here, grown up here, gone to school here. So really enjoy the culture, the diversity, and everything that Kenya has to offer. What I do, I'm an advocate in terms of speaking on issues to do with education, young people, and also peace building. Those are really important passions of mine, things that I hold dear to my life. Having been displaced for such a long time, for me, it's really been about what can I do. It's not about the status I have or the disadvantages I faced, but really how can I pull myself up and pull my community up with the expertise I have, with the opportunities that have been available for me. So I'm really glad to be here today to just share my experiences, talk about how displacement has had an effect on me, but also how displacement, what opportunities that offered for me. So it's really a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. I am excited to have you, Foni.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is David Erjok. I am a South Sudanese refugee, stay here in Kenya. I was born and raised here. I am an artist, a freelance journalist, and I'm a creative performer. I use my poetry most of the time to, speak out against issues that affects my community mostly, and to also, break the norms that a lot of people perceive about refugees. Because growing up in Kenya, we literally have a different perception, from what I perceive as a refugee and what people perceive me as a refugee. So far, I think I have, breaking through and able to create, a platform where I'm able to inspire young refugees and also, change people's perception, especially people that I've interacted with, people that have heard my work. I've been able to show them a different side of being a refugee.
Thank you,
And
David.
today, I'm happy to be here today with this amazing panelist.
Pleasure.
I am also excited to have you guys. I am very excited to get into these issues and unpack what is likely to be something that we hide. Most times you do not want people to think that you have biases. You don't want people to think that you think somehow about people, but today I intend to unpack that. So I will start with Hussein. So Hussein, I have a question. Please tell us about your experience in Kenya. So talk to me about since you came up until now, what has that experience been like?
Good. Since I came to Kenya, because of some language barriers, I faced some difficulties to live and to interact with the people. But thanks to God, now I try to communicate and to say what I'm supposed to say. And then also, because sometimes we have a problem, as you know. So I want Kenyans and all NGOs to know more things about the Ethiopian people and also Oromo. Oromo people, they are long in population. They are a big number of people in Ethiopia. But sometimes people, they are not differentiating between Oromos and Amaras.
Okay.
But I'm not coming up with about the tribalism. But I wanted people to know also there is a big number of different tribes and different numbers of people in Ethiopia. So I faced a lot of things, difficulties with livelihood and everything. But thanks to God, now we are surviving in a way, staying in Kenya. We really appreciate the Kenyan government and the NGOs also for providing us the documentation, which is good. Refugees also are people like me in the yo. I want people to understand on that, to know what is a refugee. There is some people, they don't understand what is a refugees. There is a people who don't understand what is happening or what is going on in Ethiopia. I want the Kenyan government and the other NGOs to go in deep and get into what is happening at the moment between the Ethiopian government in Oromo. So I want the government to come deep and see it and decide how they can make a peace. The reason why we are opening this group, for example, I personally, I want people to come together and learn from each other and know each other and not to make a conflict. Our aim is to bring people together and to make a peace. So I am requesting others, NGOs and other companies to know and to try to come up with this peace and come into the deepest of the issues, what is happening in Ethiopia, especially amongst Oromo communities in Tigray. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you for walking us, shedding light. So I have a question relating to, so when you came to Kenya, my understanding is that in Ethiopia, you do not speak English. English is not taught in school. I don't know if it's taught or not, but that is something you are about to tell me, about to teach me. What is that like? What is the language difference? And how did that take you back when you came into Kenya and school?
Okay. In Ethiopia, the language which was being taught is Oromo and Amharic. English is just like one subject.
Okay.
Especially in rural areas, people are being taught in their mother tongue. From class 1 to class 8, they are just learning in Oromo and Amharic. Amharic is just like one subject. All the other languages in Oromo, English is one subject also. Okay. So the reason why we are not colonized, that is the reason why people are not learning English deeply. Maybe this day they come up with an idea, especially in Addis or wherever, they started learning in English.
Okay.
So we have a language barrier. The reason is just we are not colonized. There is not a lot of foreigners come there. But these days there is a change, especially in city. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Foni, I have a question relating to education and language. And what are some of the ideas that people form when they realize, oh, this person cannot speak English, or this person does not understand my language, and how right or wrong are those assumptions?
I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that all of us, we've watched movies, we've seen Western media and how they portray particular aspects of the country. So, for example, in Kenya, we've seen, when we're thinking about the Maasais, we'd think about they're not civilized. They wear shukas, or they don't speak a particular language, or they don't do this. And I think it goes back to, what are we taking in? We're taking in whatever the media wants us to take in. And once we take that in, that forms our perception about people. So in short, when we're thinking about refugees, these are people, we came to this country, we were stable in our country for some time, and then we were so used to just speaking one particular language, or the common language for my country, Arabic. And then you come to a place and all people speak is Kiswahili or English. So you have to readjust and start thinking about, what can I do to fit in, So it's created a space whereby people feel when I come to Kenya, for me to integrate, I have to learn the language. But then, have we ever thought about it? What if I learn the culture of these people, what language they speak? Because then that will enable me to understand this person does not speak English or does not speak Swahili because they're not from here. It's not because they just migrated out of choice. They came here because of a particular reason. They were fleeing their country, and now they found themselves in this new place and they have to readjust. So sometimes you'd find people will be like, okay, this is just another foreigner. That's a typical sort of myth or misconception. Because if anyone doesn't speak Kiswahili, you automatically assume, huyu mtu amekuja kutembea. Or huyu mtu ametoka tu somewhere, so acha yaje, let him jipanga. But then in real sense, it goes back to how aware are we about our surrounding? Because one thing that is also really important to educate ourselves on is that in our country, we have tourists. We have people who are migrants. They just came here willingly. They were like, I'm looking for an opportunity. I know Kenya is here and I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
But then in the same community, we have people who fled their countries because of particular reason, political, religion, different reason that they fled the country. So it also goes back to us. If I'm meeting someone for the first time and be like, okay, so why are you here? Of course, it's you don't need to ask someone why you're here. What are you doing here? But it really goes back to us taking that initiative of even understanding what profiles do we have within our country? Who are some of the people who come here? If we're talking about refugees, if we talk about displacement in its sense, displacement comes in different aspects. Within the displacement community as well, there are different sort of people who are also found there. We have people who are asylum seekers. These are people who are still seeking asylum and they've not been granted that particular status. We have people who are stateless. Even in Kenya, we had people who were stateless and recently they were kind of like adopted as the other tribe in Kenya. So these are people who Kenya does not recognize them. Their country does not recognize them. So they're stateless. We have people who are IDPs. I mean, we're living in Kenya and we have IDPs. So it's really important when we're thinking about displacement, think about it not only in terms of we only know refugees, we also need to think about all these other people, the IDPs, the stateless, people who are still seeking asylum. This is because their status has not been determined. So it's really important when we're thinking about all the different characters in our country, we can all get wrapped up in many things. And it's true. It's really important. You have my own issue, you have your own issue. But then it's also really important for us to be aware of what is happening in our country. Who do we even have in our country? It's not just about maybe my next door neighbor is a refugee or is an IDP or is a stateless person. But do I know what that means? Because if I know what that means, then I would understand that if I'm speaking to this person in Kiswahili, si kujifanya anajifanya hizi nijibu, because haelewi. You know, if a child is in class and they're not able to comprehend, it's not because ni wajinga. It's because you're teaching them in a totally different language. And they will not participate. They will not be able to share. So those are like the different dynamics, which I feel when it comes to education, it shouldn't be just about me going to class and learning about everything, but also learning about my immediate surrounding. What is there? Then that will enable me to interact with people much more better.
Are there policies in education that guide language or interaction with the rainbow of people around us? I mean, does the Kenyan system provide for that framework?
I think one thing we also need to really look at critically is that Kenya in itself, it has duties to the citizens. The first duty is to the citizen, and then Kenya being a signatory to the 1951 Convention on Refugee, that means they're able to accept refugees and provide some of the basic services. So you find that in education, as much as we would like much more things to happen, there's some policies which are not really clear, right? So access to education is one thing. all children, anyone who is in Kenya has the right to access to education. But then when we're thinking about the access to education, are we thinking about the other realm on how do we provide extra support for refugees who come in, who are not able to really participate because of the language? We're talking about an education system that is very overburdened with many, many amazing children who want to gain that little knowledge to better themselves. But then the numbers are also overwhelming. So it's also really looking at how can we better provide support to the resources we have within Kenya. And then this support will trickle down to ensuring that refugees are also able to participate. So one of the things that is currently happening at the global level, we have the Global Compact on Refugees. And with this, it's taking a different approach of how do we ensure a whole of society approach is incorporated. So if we're talking about the education system, what needs to happen?
Okay.
If we don't have enough teachers, what are some of the support that needs to be taken into account? If we have young kids or many children enrolling to school, what extra support can we also provide for them? One practical thing that I've seen in education that is also happening is that when refugees come here, for example, if you left your country in Form 1 and you're coming here, you want to join the Kenyan system. Because if you're coming from a different system, then it means your documents have to be translated or equated to the Kenyan system.
Yeah.
So that is a really practical way of ensuring that they're able to still go to school and they're able to participate. So I think it's really also looking at what are they coming in with? How do we meet them halfway and not just shut them out? Language is one aspect. I've seen different schools offering extra classes where people come in and they are taught. I've seen they've also made provisions for adult literacy, because that's also something that we need to think about. When we're thinking about someone who's been displaced and has been fleeing different countries, and you come to Kenya and you're 17 years old and you're told you have to go to class 2 or class 4 or class 5, that distracts everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So also really ensuring that there's the extra support for adult literacy to prepare them when they come into the Kenyan education system, they're able to fully participate, fully engage, and fully just get on with everything.
Get into the system.
Yeah.
And also, just to add what she said, also to integrate the people who come. Sorry.
Just 1 second. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry, dude. So to our viewers, one of our panelists has to leave, and so I would like him to give us his parting remarks. Please, before you leave, what are your parting remarks? Your final, what would you like to put out there?
Okay, what I like to put in, I just wanted to encourage each refugees not to let them down, and then to try to do what they can do in their life and not to give up. There is a future life in ahead. So I encourage everyone to be proud of himself or herself. That is it.
Thank you
Welcome.
so very much.
Thank you.
Now you can leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for honoring us and being here.
See you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you so much. Now, Dave, you're about to talk about.
Yes, I was about to add on what she said.
Yes, you're about to add on what she said. What Foni said.
As she was talking about education system,
Yes.
and how if you come from your country, your document have to be created to the system, Kenyan system. There's a downside to it.
Yeah.
You might have documents that are very valid. You might, have higher education, from your country. You might have been practicing medicine, other careers. And then when you come to Kenya, that becomes a downside because your document are not recognized.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, I think it means that one assumption or people might have is that all refugees in Kenya can easily have access to education. But then in real sense, it's not one of those things you wake up and be like, yes, I'm going to go to school. You have to think about it.
There's a process.
There's a process. There's a process of if my documentations are not equated, I can't have access to school. If I'm applying to university and my documents are kind of like refugee documents, we'll be like, but you're a foreigner, So like education, access to education is one of the biggest need that all the refugee young people I've interacted with, I've worked with. If you ask them, what's the first thing you want to what do we focus on? They'll be like, education.
I need to go to school.
I need to go to school. Because that's one thing that they will always take with them.
Yeah. So then a prevailing misconception that might be there is, oh no, refugees don't know anything because they don't learn anything from where they're from. Why? Because honestly, integrating and learning a new language is hectic.
It's hectic.
I can only imagine, So maybe one of those misconceptions that arises from that lack is equating refugees to needy people simply because of lack of access to education and such resources. Now, Foni mentioned something. You mentioned the multiplicity of our society, how we have different, different faces and rainbows and things. And so another misconception would be some people from South Sudan are coming as tourists. Also, they're coming with a lot of money. Okay, thanks. And in fact, when they come to your shop, they're going to be buying everything.
I'm so happy I'm a South Sudanese. I'm rich.
Exactly. South Sudanese comes to your shop, unafunga duka, sold out. Tell me, Dave, what are the implications of this assumption, and where does it stem from? Is it because I don't think any the problem with myths and misconception is that they don't just stem from the air.
Yeah.
There's something that
There's a root.
yes, there's something that makes it propagate it. So it's okay. It's fine. They're coming to my
I think
so tell me.
the misconception that South Sudanese are rich, I think stems
that you
from,
have money.
I mean, the root of it, stems from political market of South Sudanese politics.
Okay.
How their main, investment field is Kenya and, Uganda.
Okay.
So Ugandan people and Kenyan people have that misconception. There's one thing. There was a campaign that happened, I think it was in 2019. It was headed by Anna Taban. Anna Taban is a movement which advocates for, youth rights and also South Sudanese rights.
Building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also it did involve an activist called Boniface Mwangi.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing was, an ordinary South Sudanese is not rich.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's because most of the people that, Kenyans see here driving cars are the looting tycoons.
It's like, whoop.
Yeah. Those are the looting tycoons that, would loot South Sudanese country and come invest here. But if you look at an average South Sudanese, we live in camp. Yeah. But they are able, maybe get supported from, we have a system, dependency system, which Dinka people, I would say all South Sudanese. If you're from the camp and you have someone, a relative who have gone abroad, of course, they would help you out to come to school to Nairobi. So you'd see, we value education more because we're in the camp and we know this is a way out. So we see somebody from the camp being, able to afford, being supported to afford a higher education system or somewhere that is, affordable, which an ordinary Kenyan cannot afford. But that does not mean they can afford it. It means they value education more so much that they would support it. And I have been told that I'm rich. I wish I was rich.
So what are the implications of such a misconception on you?
I think it has a lot of implications because it denies me a lot of opportunities.
Okay.
To be honest. So
honestly, I'm only laughing because she's laughing.
For example, let me just give a very, very simple example. I'll go to the shop.
Okay.
What you would buy, 500 shilling would be sold to me maybe 1,500.
Okay.
Because literally I am rich. And not just that. When it comes to opportunities too, mostly South Sudanese don't work in Kenya. That they believe we are well better off. So if I apply for a job, they would rather pick someone who's from a different nationality than me because they're like, okay, this guy he's able to afford his lifestyle or he's able to, he's well off. So it has a lot of downside to it, and it kind of like, when it comes to security, it you put yourself in danger. I mean, it puts you in danger in terms of Kenyan would, a thief would probably perceive, I'm a robber South Sudanese because he has more money. You see?
Yeah.
So that kind of implications kind of like make life hard for South Sudanese that are living in Nairobi, that are living in Uganda, and also making it hard for refugees who are not able, and they are branded with that misconception.
Okay.
And
Yes,
just
yes.
additions. I think it's really important to be clear when we're thinking about nationalities, the different nationalities when it comes to the refugees. And one thing that is really important to really understand, just as Dave was saying, is that some refugees might be here, some South Sudanese might be here, and we have normally within the refugee solutions, durable solutions, you'd find that there are three sort of durable solutions. The first one is return. You're able to go back to your country. The second one is resettlement. This means because you can't be integrated into the community or go back to your country, then the third option is being resettled to a different country.
Which is a 1% chance for refugee.
Exactly. And then the last solution is integration, being integrated within the community. So if I'm South Sudanese, Kenya will be like, yes, Foni, you're becoming a Kenyan. Then I become a Kenyan. So you find that for different refugees or different families or different people who were resettled some time back, then they would provide remittances. So they're able to kind of like give that money to their people.
To their people.
Yes.
And does this then explain why most, say, South Sudanese would be living in so, for instance, this is a 2-bedroomed house. You'd find like maybe 10 or 15 members living together. What is that
I think
about?
with each community, there's always that sense of belonging, sense of community. For some people, they find it easier to live with my people, make sure we're living here, we're able to provide. It makes it easier to survive in a country that maybe you're not.
And also support system.
And the support system.
You would find
as well.
somebody who cannot be able to afford a house and, a babysitter. So it would live with a relative, because they know they would be able to, get food there, get shelter there.
Yeah. And then it goes back to the point I was also saying that when we're thinking about displacement, we have to differentiate it with migration, the voluntary migration. Refugees, South Sudanese refugees, Somali refugees, some of them didn't come here because they wanted to. They were fleeing. Yeah. And then we have South Sudanese who are able to make money and they moved here to just live here or have access to education. It's kind of like the same thing in Nairobi. We have people who've made it and we have people who are still trying to make it. So we can't, if I go to South Sudan and be like, if you see a Kenyan from tribe A, these are always rich people. Yeah. Or if you see someone from tribe C, they are very rich. That's a typical stereotype that I think all of us, every one of us has. Yeah. In terms of the different tribes, we'll think about tribe A and say they like money, tribe C, they like this, tribe D, they like this. So it's really just understanding that the context when it comes to displacement, there's my voluntary migration and then involuntary migration. So refugees who are here, most of them, it's not that some of them made it some time back. So even if they made it and they come here, maybe they have access to the different things. So they're able to sustain their lives. Others, they're just living here, working or doing whatever they do. I don't want to get to all the different details, but anyway, but I think it's just being able to differentiate that. You can't judge everyone based on a lifestyle of a group of people. Because if we end up doing that, that's why we'll always, this has existed even nikiwa mdogo, and it still exists still right now.
Yeah.
Because then it means that we are missing opportunity of serving someone who is really needy. Because that happens. South Sudanese, you guys are rich. Yeah. So it's okay. We will not help you. And then the other aspect is also really understanding that every single one of us, we want to be self-actualized. We want the best things in life. We want the best clothes. We want to wake up, dress vizuri, live vizuri, eat vizuri. So why is it different if a refugee decides, Leo, by the way, I'm going to rock myself, put on these fancy things and do whatever. Nice. I want to look nice. Then I can't come and just say, where, apana, you're dressing like this when you're rich, you know? And I think that sometimes comes into play because people want the best thing in life.
Yeah.
And if they have that opportunity of just enjoying that moment of dressing, eating, doing something that for them at that moment is right, we shouldn't be quick to say, we're winning refugee. How kai refugee?
So that brings it to us.
Yeah.
Refugee anakaje. Dave, refugee anakaje.
It's pretty hard to pinpoint because anybody could be a refugee.
Anyone can be a refugee.
Anyone could be a refugee. I mean,
anyone.
Just like Foni said, the refugees in the camp did not just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to just trek all the way to Kakuma or trek all the way to Dadaab for me to, to be getting a monthly
stipend,
food in kind, which hardly even sustain you for a month. And also, suffer the incumbent policy that you're not allowed to go out or even have opportunities that, citizens in that country have. So a refugee could be you.
Yeah.
Joyce, it could be you because literally there's so many reasons someone could be displaced.
Exactly.
You could be displaced in your own country as an IDP, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
And so a refugee is you who's watching us.
I think, if someone asks, because people have asked me these questions, Foni, are you a refugee? I'm like, no, I'm Foni, because my first identity is not my displacement or my status. My first identity should be, who do I perceive myself to be? Yeah. I'm first Foni, and then after being Foni, yes, how did you come to Kenya? Well, I was displaced and everything happened. Yeah. So I think it's really important when we're thinking about refugees, most of what we've seen in the news, media, I go back to the power of media, the power of influence it has on us, because it's already built an ideal world. When you're thinking about refugees, you're thinking, oh my God, that malnutritioned person living in a camp and, they don't. But then the real aspect of it is that refugees are people.
They're people.
They're people, first of all. They're mothers, sisters, brothers, husbands, wives. That's who they are. And then the second thing is that they fled their country because of different reasons. When my family was fleeing our country, we fled because of the work my dad was doing. My dad was a journalist. I mean, being able to just talk about critical issues, that did not change when he fled, it didn't change his identity. He still remained to be a journalist.
Still a journalist.
He still was able to do his work. The only difference was that he was not in his country. So it's really important when we're thinking about refugee, the first image that comes to our mind shouldn't be someone who is helpless. Refugee is someone like you and me, someone who has dreams, someone who will wake up today and be like, I want to go and hustle. I want to go make a living for my family. That's who a refugee is. Someone who has dreams, someone who has ambition, who has goals. The only difference is they've just been uprooted. They're not in their country where they can dig deep and grow and do what. They've just been uprooted and they're trying to make it. So that perception of, oh my God, I need to help a refugee. Sometimes you don't need, it's not about you thinking about how this person is so helpless, I have to go and help them. It's really about taking time and understanding, okay, we have people who've been displaced. What are they saying they need? You can't assume that because I'm a refugee, so where naona unataka tu chakula na manguo. Yeah. You can't assume that. Maybe what I need is someone to just sit down with me and talk. What I need is someone to just ask me, how are you doing? What are your ambitions? Because I think that image we've already created in our minds already dictate. We talk about, most of the time we're talking about the white saviorism syndrome. Like, I want to go out and save. I want to go out and do. But then have we taken a step back? We're judging other people who are doing that. But what exactly are you doing? So,
and what kind of perception, like when you help somebody too, when you're helping them, what mindset do you have when you help them? Perception, how you perceive them in helping them.
Yeah.
Because you might be helping me thinking, okay, he's helpless. I am going to help him. While what I need is totally different from him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or what I need is for you to perceive me and look at me equally. Yeah.
So how do we switch this? How do we alchemize this myths and misconceptions? Because they exist.
They exist.
They
Very much.
exist and they're not about to leave. For instance, as a Kenyan, I have a perception towards, say, a particular tribe. As a Kenyan, and it is up to me to debunk that. And what now we're doing in this conversation is we are saying, now listen, it's not just the tribes in Kenya, but the nationalities in Kenya, the people in Kenya, and the circumstances that brought them to Kenya. And each individual is unique in their own way. So how do we change this? This narrative. Okay, so it's this guy's a bad blood. Okay, sour. So how do you take the existing narrative and make gold out of it, make a good thing out of it? Yeah. And the other bit is, I had a guest who said, when someone looks at me, he was South Sudanese, and he said, when someone looks at me, they think that I am violent. And stories of as growing up, going to school, when two people report to the principal, so two people fight. Actually, there's another lady who also told me the same thing. She said, if we fight, if a Kenyan child, a visibly Kenyan child, fights with a South Sudanese child, when you go to the principal's office, the conversation changes to, okay, so you're South Sudanese, you're violent. How do we change this? How do we have a constructive conversation? The myths are existing, sawa ndo hizi. How do we move forward? How do we make this better?
I think one thing, it's really also understanding that everyone who's been displaced, we all experience the post-election violence.
Yeah.
And we know that what does to people. You become very enclosed. You become very defensive. And I think one thing is that if you've experienced displacement and all the negativity that comes with it, you will always be defensive.
It's like you're on a survival mode.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. So, for example, I'll share my story. My dad, being someone who's been very vocal and able to talk about issues, I know for myself, by the way, I was like, yes, I want to take that route. I want to do this the right way. I want to do this, everything like that. Then in 2016, as he's doing his work, he goes missing. And then the next thing we hear about him, he's been killed. Of course, I will have to put all my guards up.
Yes.
I will put all my guards up because I'm struggling mentally to understand how can something like this happen even after I've left my country, right? So it's really about us being able to just take time out and try and, instead of saying these people are violent, why is someone acting this way? Do we know their story? Have we taken time out to just sit and understand, so why is this person here? It's really about us talking and understanding why this person is facing this particular. Maybe they're dealing with, because I think it's really important for us to recognize that violence, those experiences, they're part of you. You can never take them out of you. They'll become part of you. The only difference is what you choose to do with it. Some people will hold it and become just violent and express themselves. And we can't just say all South Sudanese are violent. Maybe there are also people, kila mtu ako na temper. Everyone has tempers. I've had my flares with my temper. Everyone has had that moment. I throw hands. I'm like, no way, I can't do this. People have that. But then it also goes to that extent of taking time out to realize that if you have something that is dear to you right now, think about your position right now, the house you're living in, the food you have, everything that you have. And then one day you wake up, you find yourself in a totally new country. You have to learn the new things there. You have to deal with the fact that leo neza amka, I have an ID that expires in the next 1 month or 2 months, and then have to start thinking about where am I going to get the next ID. You have to think about if I go to this place, I will not get this service because of my ID. It goes beyond why they're violent or why that perception. It goes to the fact, to the core issue of these people. There are some rights which are not accessible to them. It makes them sad.
Yeah, there's a lot of
They don't
trauma
have
there.
dignity. There's a lot of trauma. So we can't just assume nikiona Msomali ama nikiona South Sudanese, Burundian, Congolese, I'll just assume this person is just violent because of that. It goes back to me as a human being, you as a Kenyan or whatever nationality, you've had moments when you've been disappointed, moments when things have been taken from you, and you will always react. It's a defense mechanism. So it really goes to the point of taking time to talk with them and understand why someone is this way or what is happening, and not just judging. Yeah.
I think last time I fought, I can't remember. To be honest,
Never fought.
It's not because it's not because I'm not strong enough to beat up somebody, but I know better not to not use my fist, because I know I can respond better, make it, ease the situation, mitigate it instead of filling it up. And one other aspect people don't get is there are like culture clashes that happen. You see, as a South Sudanese or a Dink man, I'm just saying that I hate saying that because it makes me sound like I'm tribal.
Exactly. Because I'm a Madi girl. I'm from Eastern Equatoria.
Yeah. And I try to avoid that very much.
This would... Okay, go ahead.
So, culture, like, there are like so many cultural differences sometimes as a South Sudanese where I come from. You might find, our men are not exposed enough, or they have a certain way they're there to, or certain values they hold, or principles. And finding yourself in a jungle like this in Nairobi, exposed to different cultures where people do things differently.
Yeah. And
they get to clash with your principles and value, and your response is to just lash out and get angry. And that most of the time it takes time. When I grew up, I was born in Kenya, and I've been told I'm violent since I was in primary school. And if I try to speak up for my right, they would definitely say, why do you get angry fast?
Yeah.
And that also contributes to it. Because if you tell a child, from a little stage that you are violent, you're literally instilling that in their head. Because what would you do at the end of the day? Everybody's calling you violent, so you literally respond to it. Psychologically, it would happen. And culture shock happen. And for most of the time, it takes time for someone to educate themselves and to understand what is sarcasm sometimes when you say it, and not get angry like this person have insulted me some way. Kenyan makes jokes.
And I think at the same time, it's really just understanding that people are still in survival mode. Every single day you wake up, you have to think about what am I fighting for? Yeah. I'm fighting for something else. So I need to fight. Because you've not gotten to that self-actualization. You've not even gotten through the stage of being like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's the safety, whatever. You've not gotten half of it, right? And I think what I would advise people, if you're thinking about it goes back to even just our immediate environment. We've been told so many things. Yeah, we've had so many things. Tribe X wanapenda kufloss. Tribe D wanapenda pesa. So are you choosing to believe that, or are you questioning that? Because if you choose to believe that, then that means anyone you interact with,
that is the same mentality
you propagate. That's the same message you'll keep on passing across. While in the real sense, you have incredible friends who are from those tribes, and they're not doing whatever those people are saying. But are we amplifying that? Are we propagating that? So what is our role?
And I think every society have its own bad and good.
Yeah.
You cannot expect all South Sudanese to be so polite.
Fair enough.
Here in Kenya too, I'm being honest.
Fair enough.
Here in Kenya too, we got people who have issues.
We're all different.
We're all different. So
exactly.
You cannot literally base your judgment on that one interaction that you had with that South Sudanese that he lashed out on you. You get to do better, get to educate yourself, know better. Are these people all like this? Is there a way I can approach them differently more than I did? So people don't get to take that, step to educate themselves and try to know. They literally just perceive. So if I come here today and Joyce is telling me like, they be violent, you don't want to know me already. I think I would just be in my defensive mode.
Yes.
Very much in my defensive mode, because I'm like, okay, you think I'm violent and I'm not.
Yeah.
So hearing side of the story sometime and get to know the other side of the story matters.
So both of you have a foot in media a bit, in storytelling. So what is the role of storytelling in changing the narrative? Because you have hinted, Foni, you have hinted to the power of media in shaping the narrative. So have you, Dave. So what is the power of media? What is the power of storytelling? And how do we switch this? How do we make this better? Yeah.
I think whatever story we're telling, we should make sure that we're not. If I'm talking about my story, it's much more clearer. You can understand. You can see what I'm saying. I know we have media who will create those enabling environments to tell these stories. But then it's really important when we're telling these stories, we're not telling it based on what I've perceived, what you have perceived. It's really telling the story in the voice of the person who you're actually asking those questions. Because I think media has so much power,
Yes.
It has so much power. Look, for example, at the global level, with numbers or with the names that refugees were given, we have a wave of refugees, we have an influx of refugees. People will panic.
And it sounds like a swarm. It's like a whoop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
have a
people
way
will
of
panic.
feeding off controversy.
Yeah.
So
So it's also really as media personalities or people in media, it's really thinking about, if I'm using this term, what does it mean?
What is the implication of
What's
this?
the implication? Really being intentional and questioning that term. Because if you're just using and throwing it just for the sake of making sure, oh my God, I'm going to have the incredible
numbers.
headlines, then it's still an injustice. Because at the end of it, this 70 or influx or wave, these are people. These are not just numbers.
These are faces.
These are faces. These are people who wake up every day. These are people who have blood in their body. And if you propagate that, then what does that imply to the community? The community reception will be like, oh my God, we just had, there were so many refugees coming in, panic comes in. It destabilizes everything, even in the community, because one of the first people who will receive refugees, as much as the border, is the community.
Yeah.
The community is the first people who will receive them, who will live with them. And if we've already created an environment where the community feels, I don't want to see anyone who is fleeing their country, who is coming in here, we're losing humanity. So I think the media has to play a big role and rethink, how are we using the tools we have? Are we propagating humanity, or are we just making a mess of everything else?
Yeah.
Because if we're doing that, then there's no need of having media. We're kind of like, of course it's fun. Having social media is good. Watching news is fun. It creates I've interacted with many, many great personalities in media. But then I think it also falls back to their role. With me telling this story, what's the end goal? Is it for me to win a prize, or is it for me to make a change? Now, for me, would be the key thing.
That would be it.
Yeah, I think just like she said, I'm studying communication, bachelor in communication, and the power of media is really powerful. In 2018, I think we had TEDx talk in Kakuma for the first time, and it was had all over the world globally. People were surprised to hear some of the stories that were coming out of Kakuma refugee camp, because literally for someone who's been just, for example, someone in America sitting on their TV watching news, and CNN bringing up news about refugees in Yemen or in Sudan or in Kenya, the image that they will bring is like literally tent.
People moving,
children who are malnourished, and that kind of create an image that we believe in. You get to see, okay, refugees are like this.
Yes, all refugees look like
also, we have to look at the positive side of it. When refugees come to a country, they don't just come to take.
Yeah.
They come to contribute. When I was a kid, Kakuma in 2003, there was a host community and refugee conflict. It was a big conflict, involved guns. And we lost quite a number of people to a point that we left the camp to go look for shelter in a nearby place. It lasted for 2 weeks or a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think what the host community perceived back then was, these people are coming to take, because that's what the media portrayed. These people are coming to take our resources. But now, if you go back today and ask a kind of person, do you want the refugees to be resettled or voluntarily go back to their countries? The answer would be no.
Mm-hmm.
Because so far there's been an exchange of
economic injection.
Yeah, and culture.
Yeah. Mm.
And that so far built Turkana. I mean, Kakuma is not as 10 years ago, 25 years ago, when it was first started. It is one of the big market in terms of, contributing to Kenyan economy.
Yeah.
Indicated by World Bank in 2018. So, Kakuma annual spend, I don't know. It's something, I don't want to mess up the numbers.
It's okay.
I don't want to mess up the numbers, but it contributes a lot to the Kenyan economy. And that aspect, we have to look at it. Are they contributing or taking? And we have had a conversation around, integrating, I was born here, I'm not a Kenyan, and still. We have talked about integrating refugees to be Kenyan. And that did cause, some kind of panic between the host community. They think we come to take.
Yeah.
I myself, for example, if I get integrated today, I've studied, I've literally known everything about Kenya. I will work here and I would contribute, pay my taxes, just like every normal Kenyan. And that is a contribution to the development and also, the Kenyan thriving to becoming the vision that they envision it. So at the end of the day, we have to look at both sides. Are they coming to contribute? Are they coming to take or contribute?
On that exact note, are they coming to take or contribute?
Contribute.
And then with that question right there, I want, would you please answer this with having in mind, so 2022, impending camp closure, with again the 3 sustainable solutions. Let me tell you, it has taken me so long to remember sustainable solutions. I don't know what it is. Durable solutions. Thank you. Durable solutions. So in mind with the 3 durable solutions, with the most viable being the integration into the society. But that's just my opinion about being viable. But yeah, please answer my question with that.
The 3 choices that were given to refugees: resettlement, voluntary repatriation, and integration. I think integration should have happened a long time ago.
Okay.
It shouldn't be given as a choice now that the closure is happening. And also, when we talk about integration, this is one thing that I think the Kenyan government and the United Nations have ignored. How they have a conversation to mentally prepare, the host community. These people are going to have equal rights as you. They're going to be your next door neighbor, and they're going to be sharing the same resources and, not get, aid from the United Nations like they used to. And the same job you're going to apply for is the same job you're going to apply for. They have not touched on that conversation, when it comes to integration. And when it comes to voluntary repatriation, I don't think refugees will go back. Look at it this way. We have highest numbers coming to refugee camp more than ever. In South Sudan, our economy is worse. It's not getting better anytime soon. And somebody living in South Sudan earning 1,000 South Sudanese pound a month, that could hardly even sustain your day. You would think, okay, instead of dying here, let me go to the camp where I could be able to get food in kind and get the vouchers that people get in the camps. And when it comes to resettlement,
you mean the ratios? The ratio cut? Okay. Yeah.
When it comes to resettlement, it is a gamble, or it is a lack. I would say that something that you chance. Because when we talk about that 1% chance, it's not just in Kakuma. Yeah, Kakuma is not just the only refugee camp in the world. We're talking because every country, I do believe, demand or request amount of refugees that they will receive annually. And let's say if United Nations today is requesting to receive like 50,000, 200,000, it's not just going to be in Kakuma refugee camp. It's going to be in Yemen. It's going to be in Ethiopia. It's in Kakuma.
It's worldwide.
Worldwide. So that 1% chance, it's
a very slim.
It's a very slim chance to say that you would rely on or to for refugees to hold on as a hope, say that I'm getting resettled. Of course, that's what every refugee hope, get resettled. Yeah.
Maybe just a quick additional point is that we have, like worldwide, we have like around 70 million refugees.
Okay, that's a huge number.
Not just this different sort of displacement, coming to about 70. And these are people who are in limbo, right? So waiting for governments to decide what will happen. But then one thing, if you look at refugees around Kenya, refugees in Kenya, especially South Sudanese or the different nationalities, you'd find that most refugees don't flee very far. They flee within the neighboring countries. Why? Because they're hopeful. One day that they'll be able to go back, that they will return home, that they'll be able to rebuild their countries. And for people who are still hopeful, but then they are not able to go back to their country, then when integration is not possible, when resettlement is not possible, when that return, because Kenya is also part of the 1951 convention, they can't just say, you have to go. Go tokeni. There are some procedures they have to follow. Someone has to voluntarily say, mimi nataka kurudi home. So you find they're also in limbo. They're stuck there. So that's a practical reality, that even if these solutions and whatever creative solutions, because with the Global Compact on Refugees, with the whole of society approach, with people thinking about different complementary pathways on how refugees can be able to kind of like rebuild themselves, it's something that will take a long time to come. So with this uncertainty, camp closures, what happening? We have people in limbo.
Yeah.
People who are not sure what happens after 6 months. That's a reality.
Yes.
So it means that their mental health as well is not in check.
Because people can be productive with it.
No, because you're thinking, what happens to me? So it's really, I think what I've learned is that what refugees can do, what host community can do right now, what opportunities do we have? Yeah, we have schools. Let's take the best advantage of it. Because if I have that education, even if I'm not sure about tomorrow, for today, I know that I can have formal or informal access to education, and I can better improve myself. I can make sure that when the time comes for me, for the unknown future, that I'm still able. The second thing that they have, when they came into the countries, they didn't come with nothing.
Yes.
They had skills. So refugees, I've seen the resilience.
Thank you for saying that.
I've seen the skills. They came with skills. Yeah. So you find people running small businesses, making peanut butter, doing this, doing that. Wanna hustle. They're also hustling.
The oil, what's it called?
The shea butter.
Shea butter.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really about we as Kenyans, I'm not Kenyan, sorry. As Kenyans,
no, it's okay.
As Africans, really understanding that we need to unite. If we can't always expect people from outside to sort out our issues.
Yeah,
we need to sort out our issues. We need to see if South Sudan and this country or whatever countries are still in conflict, what is our role as Africans to improve that?
Yeah.
What can we do to ensure that we're improving that? Because if we end up depending on mtu wa nje kukuja, of course they will come mediate and do whatever. But we need to call ourselves out. If my sister is making something, I'm like, no way, hapana, you're doing it wrong. Or if my brother is doing something, you're doing it wrong. We shouldn't be based on, we shouldn't continue propagating the tribal conflict that has existed. The many different things that have existed. We need to find a way of uniting, of looking at each other as human beings, of looking at each other as this person brings this skill and this is what the value they add, as opposed to when
they're coming to take.
As they're coming to take.
Yeah.
We're contributing. Yeah. If I, as Foni, if someone asks, so when I'm refugee, what have you done? Yeah. I'll be like, I've done my best.
First, you have a docket. First of all, you guys should look her up. My God.
Please don't stalk me. So I think contribution comes in different ways. It's not just about money. It's not just about that. It's also about in the environment. I mean, how are you assisting someone who is not from your nationality? If it's a young girl, how are you mentoring the young girl? How are you working with the young girl? So contribution is not just about money. It comes in different ways at different points at different times.
Just like you talk about contribution, it is. I think it should be a social responsibility to every person who's educated about refugees, you know, to educate another person, you know, change their mindset about the perception they have about refugees. And that is something that we hardly do. You might have the knowledge, you know, but you would sit on it. You know, refugees, you know, are like this, and they are this people and this people, but the other person will perceive it differently.
Yeah.
So I think it should be a social responsibility as individual, educating another person about refugees, and that way
you can't force them at the end of the day.
Yeah,
you can't force them.
Cannot.
If you decide to be ignorant,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'll be honest and say this: I see a huge danger if we do not address the misinformation, if we do not address the myths and misconception. I see a very huge danger and a possibility of xenophobia. What do you guys think about this as I take your closing remarks? But that's just my opinion.
I think what we see in South Africa about xenophobia might happen in Kenya too. Because if we do, just like you said, I see this as a danger too. The more we are ignorant about it, about refugees, and integrating them without having these conversations, it would reach a point where, like, Mkenya atakuwa akisema, hey, huyu jamaa ananichukulia opportunity yangu, or this guy is invading my land,
my space.
Yeah. So I think addressing it now before we talk about integration when the closure happened should really, really be the focal point.
Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, my closing remarks on things that need to happen. The first thing is that we need to do a bit of more educating, public awareness. Communities need to understand, why do we have so many people from different nationalities in the country? I know these efforts are ongoing, but we need to continue just talking about these issues. What is displacement? How do people get displaced? Why are they still here? You know, have that conversation, because it's really important for people to understand why they have so many foreign nationals in their country. The second thing that needs to happen is that as we're thinking about, I know Kenya has been open for refugees, and we have refugees here, but we also need to think about how can we improve some of the systems within Kenya to ensure that Kenya is able to handle the refugees in the country. Because we can't expect and say Kenya has to do A, B, C, D, but they're also struggling. With each country, with each state, the first priority is their citizens, and the rest will follow. But we also need to make sure that they're being supported. If it's the education system, we're supporting all the infrastructure and all the different things, this is donors and other people, to ensure that Kenya has the capacity to take on the citizens as well as the refugee. The last thing, if we're having this discussion about closure of the camp, integration, it's really important to have those conversations as well. Have conversation with the host community to understand from them, is this something they want? Have conversation with refugees. Are you looking forward to it? Because at the heart of it, we have to put the people. All these policies, they can exist. But if the people don't accept it, it won't work.
It won't work.
It won't work. Then the last thing, I think Kenya has the Kenya Refugee Act 2006. It outlines all these different rights, what refugees can do, what they can't do. It's also really, we need to understand, what does this document say? So it's also a matter of educating, going back to the education. Anyone who is willing, because I think we can't force people to understand refugee matters, refugee law, refugee issues. Anyone who is able to read through it, look at it, question things when they're able to question. We need to take that act of being able to just educate yourself, then speak about the issue. Because you can't speak about the issue and you haven't
educated yourself on it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do you have any closing remarks?
You could be a refugee today.
Oh my God, you said that like 3 times.
Yeah, I'm not just telling you. I'm telling
No.
you. So you could be a refugee today. So look the word up. That's my ending remark.
Thank you. Thank you, Foni.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you for listening. And we have been called out. Kenyans have been called out. Refugees have been called out to read and inform yourself. We have a responsibility to educate ourselves. And that is why we are having this conversation. And I am super thankful for the Anika initiative and GIZ CPS on the special programs on displacement. I'm super thankful that these guys have provided this opportunity for us to have this conversation. And so I am inviting you to get on our socials. The names of our pages on different platforms are Refu Poet and Anika Initiative. We need to educate ourselves further. And so I invite you to throw your thoughts on these pages, throw your ideas on these pages. Let us learn and unlearn together. Let us debunk stories that we have carried, and let us, as I get educated, I need to educate someone else. So it has to have, there's a domino effect when we are spreading education. So we need to do that, and it has to be intentional. Otherwise, we will all suffer. It will not just be an economic thing, it will also be a social thing. So we really need to focus on our education. And I'm super, super thankful for these guys who I have hosted today, because there's so much light that has been shed. So thank you for being here. And I would invite you to remember to create a world where homes are not defined by origins. So thank you so much, and take care of yourself, and bye.
The online dialogue series of Refu Poet was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF, program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.